So this is my first ever solo podcast, and I feel a little nervous recording this. So I haven't really done anything like this before, so it's definitely taking me out of my comfort zone, which I guess is never a bad thing. On this podcast, I wanted to run through some thoughts and reflections that I've been having and lessons which have come about from that. So recently, I've been doing a lot of introspection on my life and looking back to see just how far I've come. I feel really happy and content with everything that I've accomplished so far. I've managed to travel to over 50 countries, I've built a career after receiving my master's in engineering, I've moved to 5 different cities within the UK, I've bought a home with my partner, and recently got engaged, just to name a few. And it is a great feeling, and I'm very fortunate for everything that has come my way. But I always feel that there is more that I would like to do, and I just don't know when that feeling will ever stop. There's that constant feeling of there's more and I can grow and I can achieve more. From a young age, I've loved learning and been extremely ambitious and slightly competitive. I was raised in a normal family household where my parents were working and made sacrifices from when my brother and I were young to ensure that we had everything that we needed. I feel so grateful for everything that my parents have done for us. They've had an amazing life growing up in East Africa, then moved to England as the first generation to come to the UK, and then settled down and started their lives in a new country with different people and a new language. I really admire everything that they've done, and most of all the personal qualities, traits, and values which they have instilled in us. I come from an Indian descent, and when most people think of Indian families, they can be seen as traditional or strict. But I've been really lucky in a sense that my family is liberal. My parents never stopped me from going after what I wanted or dictated what I should or shouldn't be doing. They've allowed me to learn from my own mistakes, guided me when needed, and always supported me 100% in whatever decisions that I made. It's that mutual respect which has existed between us. They've really helped shape who I am today. People say that I have a positive attitude towards life and always see things in a different perspective. And this has pretty much stemmed from my parents. They've both been go-getters and always seen the light when things are dark. Whenever I was down or was going through a bad time, I knew all I had to do is have one conversation with them and they would cheer me up and make me think bigger, better, and see that there's more to it. This has helped my positivity and made me see things in a different perspective, just like they do. This leads me nicely into my first lesson, which is maintaining a positive mindset and seeing things in a positive perspective. The more I've been reading motivation and self-development books, the more positivity comes in. It's all about your mindset and how you perceive a situation. We have thousands of thoughts running through our mind every day, and it's about being able to filter through and pushing out any negative vibes. For example, I remember when I was out on one of my solo trips and I got mugged in Argentina. So they took my phone and my first reaction was the frustration and anger. And then I was pretty much disappointed in myself for not being more careful, as I'd been a strong advocate of female safety and being vigilant. So straight after that happened, I got myself on a computer and Facebook messaged my mum. And she simply asked me, "Are you hurt?" And I said, "No." Then she said, "Are you able to continue your trip?" And I said, "Yeah." She then asked if the phone can be replaced. And I said, "Yeah," and that all my pictures were pretty much backed up. So then she asked, "Why are you upset?" "I'm just thankful that you weren't harmed." And after she said this, I was just thinking, that is pretty much spot on, and that's just how I should be thinking. That I'm not hurt. And I know many other people who had been mugged in a much more violent way and had been exposed to weapons. So this wasn't quite my experience, and I'm really grateful that it wasn't. And I could continue my trip, which was great. So yeah, she really put things into perspective. One of the many things that they've also taught me is to follow your dreams and passions, which is my second lesson. Now this may sound a bit cliche, but back in the day, they weren't presented with as many opportunities which are now open to us. So they've always said to me to go for whatever I wanted, as they never really had the chance. So I remember back in March 2010 when I was 20 years old and told my mum that I wanted to go travelling to Southeast Asia alone. There was a slight worry in her voice when she responded, and it's probably because she was scared of the thought of me being alone, but also that both of us didn't really know what to expect. I don't think travel had crossed my radar before, especially going alone as a female. So we were both in that unknown territory of what could happen or what does that exactly mean? So we discussed it, and after long discussions, she was on board. I'd agreed to stay in touch with them as often as I could and give them all the details of my trip so they could keep track. It's funny how now they hardly contact me when I go traveling abroad, as they know I'm just doing my own thing and loving life. So traveling quickly became one of my favorite passions, and my parents always supported me when I wanted to go traveling on my own to different countries, no matter how safe or unsafe they may have been. They were able to view the world from my eyes and experiences, something which they couldn't do themselves when they were younger. I grew up in Leicester, which was great, but I did tend to find that the people around me were quite similar and close-minded on certain topics. It's as though I always felt there was more to life and more to the world that I just wasn't exposed to. I didn't grow up in the best neighbourhood or go to the best schools, but I absolutely loved my educational experience and would not trade that in for anything else. My curious mind grew as the years went on, and it was actually my best friend from university who planted the seed of going abroad during our summer holiday. It sounded like a great idea at the time, and we did a little research and decided to go to Thailand. She was then continuing on to do a program in China, and I decided, instead of going home, why not take myself to Malaysia and travel around on my own? I don't even know where that first idea kind of came into my mind, but I'm so glad that it did, and I'm so glad that I took the plunge and booked those flights and went, because as soon as I booked the flights, I was locked in. The first time you travel alone is always scary. I had no idea what to expect, and I definitely overpacked. I remember I had a huge backpack which was overfilled, a smaller backpack, and then hand luggage as well. That was far too many things, but I didn't really know what would be available when I landed in terms of toiletries or snacks. I was just so new to the world of travel, so I took it all. And on top of that, my mother was worried about me not eating enough or having enough snacks, so she packed my backpack full of chocolates and crisps and biscuits and things that I could just snack on. So I'd probably say about 20-30% of my backpack was food. This was all a bad move, but I would only know that after having landed there. So my friend and I travelled around Thailand, and then I moved on to Malaysia on my own, and it felt so surreal. I remember the first day waking up in the hostel and thinking, what should I do today? Luckily, I'd met some amazing people, so we all hung out, and I decided to make my travel plans based on some of their recommendations. I quickly fell in love with being on my own and never looked back since. I've done multiple solo trips, and every time I go, many people ask why I don't go with someone else or how I am so brave to go. And my answer is always this: going alone allows me to test myself and push me out of my comfort zone, which is lesson number 3. This comfort zone concept has always been well defined and spoken about, and it's when you actually act on it that you truly grow. I do believe having some variation and entering the unknown is all a part of your self-development and growth. It is a scary concept doing anything on your own, let alone going to another country which you know not much about, but knowing the benefits I would get from it completely outweighed the fears. I'd always try to go to random places or stay with the locals when abroad to get a feel for how they live and also experience a little of their daily lives. This is one of my favourite things about going abroad. Alongside my travels has been my career. As you know, working in a corporate role only allows a certain amount of holidays, so I've tried to maximise this as much as possible by giving me lengthy trips. So I pretty much just combine my bank holidays or go over the Christmas period, etc. And then that 3 or 4 days turns into 6 or 7 days of being away. So I decided to study engineering based on my love for science and maths and thought that engineering combined the two well. Straight after graduating, I went into an engineering grad scheme and I absolutely loved it. I felt like everything I learned in my degree was coming to life, but the one thing my degree did not prepare me for was that male-dominated working environment. Although there were only 10 girls on my course out of 100, it was a lot of self-learning that we did at university, and you're pretty much with your course friends. They're all the same age, but you also have a lot of friends outside of your course. I had a lot of female friends outside, so it didn't feel as dominated whilst I was studying. Going into the engineering world, I was one girl out of hundreds of men. I got used to it quite quickly, but as expected, there were rumours about me, and also I didn't really feel as respected within the workplace as maybe I saw with others. This may have been due to my inexperience, or maybe that I was a woman. I wasn't always sure. But I do know that I had to work harder than the rest to earn the respect of the men. I remember thinking the best way to do this were doing the jobs that they were doing and learning from them. If the teams were working 12-hour night shifts, then I thought, right, let me work alongside them. And this is how I managed to build the rapport and also the respect to show that I am not just an engineer doing my 9 to 5 in the office, but I'm willing to get my hands dirty to get the job done. And this is lesson number 4. Work hard and you will get somewhere. I managed to build my career in engineering and moved around to different manufacturing sites and also cities to continue my development. Moving to different cities is a whole new ballgame. My independence shot up and I was getting more and more confident. I met some incredible people whilst away, and it really tested me in a sense that I moved to a new place without knowing anyone. So it wasn't just like your travels where you go, you meet people, you travel around and you come home. No, this was my new home and I knew no one. And I've done that 3 times now. And I've loved every experience that I've had. I've made some incredible friends. I finally ended up in London working for an FMCG company. And last year I was doing a lot of thinking, reading and talking to people who were ahead of me in my career. I realised that something wasn't quite right with how I was feeling about work, but decided not to really address it as I was enjoying the work and the financial security, which was great for me, and this was a priority for me at the time. As time went on, I realised that I wasn't really fulfilled in the work that I was doing. I'd lost my passion that I once had and didn't really feel the challenge or the personal growth which I once did. So I feel like I wanted to delve into different industries and even potentially other roles. With this in mind, I decided to leave my job at the end of last year, but I'll discuss this in another podcast as there's a lot I have to say about it. But this is all a part of me following my dreams. One thing I've also learned over the years is if you're not happy, then make a change. Only you can be in control of your happiness, which is my lesson number 5. Now, this is a lot harder than it sounds, as there are still many people who aren't happy but continue in whatever they are doing, as they are either afraid of taking a risk and making change, they have other things involved in their decision-making process, such as kids or finances, or they just don't want to do it. Now, this is okay. But then it's just a realization that this is your happiness that you're sacrificing. I can use this for my work situation. It's not that I wasn't happy with work, and in fact I had a pretty good thing going on, but I didn't feel like I was living to my full potential, and this made me unhappy. I knew I could do bigger and better, and I wanted to challenge myself to do this. I was thinking, I'm going to be working for the next 35 years. I need to make a change now in order to progress my career more so than I have. Now, this thinking can also apply to relationships. I know many people who stay in their relationships through ease and comfort as opposed to love and happiness. This may work for the short term, but will never be good for the long term. I do find that finding a partner is a real investment, one of the biggest investments that you'll ever make. That is not a decision that you want to settle for, but quite the opposite. Be patient to find the right person who aligns with your values and the stage of life that you're in. There's no harm in writing these values and qualities out so you know exactly what you're looking for. What do you want from your life partner? What would make you happy? Remember, Mr. or Mrs. Perfect does not exist, no matter what anyone tells you. But you can always get pretty close to it. And I know dating is hard in general, let alone now that we have a pandemic going on and the lockdowns every other month. But be patient and it will all fall into place. One thing I would say is through all of my experiences, I have really learned to love myself. Now, this may sound strange, but I do love myself. I love the way I am, the way I interact with others, my routines, my personality, and my appearance. I'm so happy with who I am, and that always gives me that extra bit of confidence. And don't get me wrong, this is something that I've not just come about overnight. I've developed this, and I found this love through being on my own. I'm not exactly an introvert, but I do love my own space and time. This is something that I always cherish as I gain a lot from reflecting, reading, or doing things that I love on my own. And it's always great to share moments with others, but having an hour or so every day to yourself is also great, and you can accomplish so much through just having that self-time. Loving myself contributes to my happiness and how I can then love others. I always say once you're in a great place with being by yourself, that's when you will find someone and be able to love others. On that note, overall, I've loved all of my life experiences and I can see many bright things in the future. I'm now on a bit of a different path, aiming to achieve different things, and I'm really excited to see what life has in store for me next. Really excited about 2021, so let's see what happens. That's all from me for now. Thanks for listening.